सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति। Okay, so let us chant verse number 38. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Dhumena vriyate vahnihi.
Dhumena vriyate vahnihi.
Yatha darsho malena cha.
Yatha darsho malena cha.
Yathol benavrato garbha.
Yathol benavrato garbha.
Tatha tenedam avritam.
Tatha tenedam avritam.
Okay. So we had said that this Krishna is discussing the problem of kamaha, though he talks about kama, krodha both. Here he is discussing only desire, and he has given three examples. We saw the first one in the last class. Yatha vahannihi dhumena avriyate. And we pointed out that Shankara was using the word natural, sahaja. Shankara adds the adjective sahaja to indicate that there are two types of desires: natural desires, instinctive desires. And for these, they are present in our mind because of our very nature, and we don't have any free will as to whether those kind of desires, whether these natural sahaja kama will exist or not. So sahaja kama is desire for life, desire for food and such stuff. And then we have acquired desires. And we also said that desire, that fire in this case, the vahannihi has two functions, the heating and the light. And here we are talking about the light. So basically, Krishna was saying that desire can cause problems by blunting your reasoning power. So if I am obsessed, if I am overtaken with a desire, then I cannot think carefully, and therefore my problems begin. And that is why he said, Tena idam avritam. Jnanam is covered by Tena, that desire. Now we look at the second example, Yatha Adarshaha Malena Cha. So Yatha Adarsho has to be broken as Yatha Adarshaha Malena Cha. Adarshaha is a mirror, Malam is dust. So that, this is, in Sanskrit, they just put the two words together, and we are supposed to use our broad intelligence to put them together. So basically, just if you have a literal translation, it means Yatha, just like Adarshaha Malenacha, as the mirror and the dust. So you have to supply as the mirror is covered by the dust. When the mirror is covered by the dust, what is it that the example is trying to tell us? The mirror has a particular function. And what is the function? It should show me my face so that I can either shave or put my lipstick or put my bindi. And if this mirror is covered by dust, Adarshaha Malena, then that function of the mirror cannot be carried out. The mirror will not show me my face. And therefore, I cannot do what I wanted to do using the mirror as a tool. Then what should you do? You should clean the mirror, right? Now, here is the question. Here is the interpretation. When I clean the mirror, on the first swipe of my hand with a cloth, especially if the dust has been there for some time, it becomes grime, right, with moisture and all that. That mirror becomes very dirty, grime is there. And if it's a very dirty mirror, I can't see my face at all. So I use a cloth and I wipe it once. The mirror has not been completely clean, but with one wipe, my face begins to be visible. The more I wipe, the cleaner the mirror gets. The cleaner the mirror gets, the more I can see my face. And when the mirror is completely clean, without any trace of dust at all, then it does its function properly. It is able to show me my face so that I can do whatever I need to. Remember that when I clean the mirror, what is being seen clearly is my face. But it is the mirror which is being cleaned. Nothing is done to my face. How do I know? When I put the bindi or the lipstick, I don't put it on the mirror, on the face in the mirror. I put it on my original face. So this example can be taken as an example for the effect of Chitta Shuddhi on Shravanam. It's a very beautiful example. The more you clean the mirror, the clearer your face is, the clearer your own face is. And here, if the mirror is your mind and your own face is your own nature as Brahman, and the more Chitta Shuddhi that you have, the more your mind is cleaned up, the more Chitta Shuddhi that you have, the clearer will be your own nature as Brahman. And this nature is revealed by what? By the Shastram, through Shravanam. And that is why this particular example is a beautiful example of what? The effect of Chitta Shuddhi on Shravanam. The first time that you hear something, you have heard, but it has not registered, not made an impact. And when Chitta Shuddhi is not there, then there are three technical terms which we use when you are listening to Shastra through a teacher. What are they? Remember, we are saying Chitta Shuddhi is not there, or not there to the desired quantity. The desired quality of mind is not there. So the first thing that is there is what Shastram calls Pramana Asambhavana. Pramana Asambhavana. Asambhavana means what?
Not possible. Asambhav.
Well, yes. Okay. I mean, I'll grant you that. But here you can take it as a doubt, as a great doubt. Okay. So Pramana Asambhavana means I am not very clear about what the Pramanam is teaching. Pramanam is what? Shastra. Pramanam gives the teaching. And Pramana Asambhavana means I am not clear about what Shruti is really teaching. So when I listen to Bhagavad Gita, I will have lots of questions. Like, there are many people who say that Bhagavad Gita is focusing on karma. There are some who say that no, Bhagavad Gita is main tatparya is upasana. There are others who say no, Krishna talks about srishti, creation also. And there are a small minority who say that no, it is neither karma nor upasana nor srishti. The tatparya is really Brahman. So there are many. Or is it sadguna? Chapter 16 talks about sadgunas. Is it that? So you can have, there are very many topics in the Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, there are very many topics in Shruti, in the Veda also, Upanishad also. And Pramana Asambhavana means that I am not really clear about what is the Tatparya, what is the essence of the teaching. I don't know whether Krishna is talking about Brahman or Karma or Upasana or Srishti. And every time I make my own efforts at Chitta Shuddhi, and the mind becomes more and more pure, as my FIR reduces, this clarity comes. So the first time I hear Tattvamasi, it will have not much an effect. It will be just, okay, Tattvamasi, I am that. But when FIR is completely effective, when Chitta Shuddhi is there, then when we hear Tattvamasi, then the impact of it is substantial. Oh, I am Brahman. So this is pramana asambhavana. One of the problems of chitta shuddhi, not having chitta shuddhi, is that you are not sure what the Shruti is really teaching. And in your own group, in our own group, if you look at the quality of questions, you will find that some people, questions are of a different character. Some people talk about the Brahman part of it. Some people talk about the karma part of it. Some people talk about the Srishti part of it. So pramana asambhavana is there. They are not very sure what is the tatparya, right? So that is one. The second one is prameya asambhavana. Prameyam is that which is revealed by Pramanam. And what is revealed by Shruti? Brahman is revealed by Shruti. So, Pramana Asambhavana has gone, let us say, is not there. And what does Pramanam say then? Pramanam says that Tattvamasi, you are Brahman. And if Pramana Asambhavana is not there, we have to carefully understand this point. If Pramana Asambhavana is not there, if it has gone away due to a certain amount of Chitta Shuddhi, then I do not have any doubt about what Shruti is teaching. I do not have any doubts about the fact that Krishna is saying you are Atma. When I say Pramana Asambhavana is not there for me, I mean that I accept Krishna saying that you are Atma. I accept the fact that Bhagavad Geeta is saying that you are Atma. Okay, this is the effect of Pramana Asambhavana going away. I do not have any doubts about what Bhagavad Geeta is saying. And what is it saying? Tattvamasi, you are Atma. But Prameya Asambhavana can be there. The distinction is very subtle. I know that Bhagavad Geeta is saying you are Brahman or you are Atma. That is the lack of Pramana Asambhavana. But I might have Prameya Asambhavana. While I accept that Krishna says that you are Atma, the question in my mind is, how can I be that infinite Atma? I do not question the fact that Bhagavad Gita says that I'm Atma. I am doubtful about the fact that how can I be that Atma? Is the clarity, is the distinction clear? Pramanam says you are Brahman. Of that I have no doubt. But to accept the fact that I am Brahman, that is Prameya Asambhavana. I want to know if the distinction is clear.
Very clear.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Pramana Asambhavana means Shravanam has been effective. Prameya Asambhavana is I have doubts about the fact that I am Atma. And therefore the knowledge given by Shruti is clear to me, but I have doubts. I have no doubts about what the knowledge is, but I have doubts about whether I can be the subject of that knowledge. That means I have samshayam, I have doubts about how can I be Brahman. So Shravanam removes Ajnanam. Pramana Asambhavana means that if it is not there, if Pramana Asambhavana is not there, Shravanam has been effective in that as much as it has told me that I am Atma. So Shravanam is effective. I am a Jnani, but I am a Jnani with doubts. That knowledge is full of doubts. How can I be the Atma? So that is Prameya Asambhavana. So Prameya Asambhavana can be removed only by Mananam. So in this beautiful little verse, we are talking about the three. Shravanam removes Ajnanam, Mananam removes doubts. And there is a third part, Viparita Bhavana, your habitual thinking patterns. So whether if your Chitta Shuddhi is so good that Prameya Asambhavana is also not there, Pramana Asambhavana is also not there, then you are a Jnani whose knowledge is Samshaya Rahitam, is free of doubts. You have no doubt that you are Brahman. Even then, some of the benefits, like a very peaceful mind, may not be available to you. Why? Because of habitual thinking patterns, which we call viparita bhavana. And the viparita bhavana is removed by nididhyasana. So you have three separate sadhana: Shravanam for removing ajnanam, Maranam for removing doubts, Nididhyasanam for removing Viparita Bhavana. Only when Viparita Bhavana has been addressed do I get the full benefits of Jnana. So, like the mirror having been completely cleaned and my face is shining in its original form, when Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam have removed these three impurities, Ajnanam, Samsayam, and Viparita Bhavana, have been removed by Jnana Yoga consisting of Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Therefore, all the impurities have been removed. Then alone I recognize the fact that I am Brahman. My original nature shines forth. And the impact is like a nuclear explosion. Suddenly you say, oh, this is what I am. Okay, so that is the second one. And the third example that Krishna gives is yatha garbaha ulbena avrataha. Garbaha here is the child in the womb, or the fetus, as we call it. Ulba is the womb. Avrata is covered. So yatha ulbena garbaha avrataha. Just as the fetus is covered by the womb. Which means what? In the womb, the child does not have the power to function independently. A child in the womb is non-functional, it is only alive, right? So what is the comparison here? Some desires may be lying unexpressed, and in fact, not only unexpressed, unrecognized in your subconscious mind. So it may be latent, right? Those desires are in your subconscious mind and you don't even know that they are there. And since you don't know that they are there, they are not able to express themselves as desires. So they are vasanas. Essentially, they are vasanas. They have not got the trigger. We remember the discussion between vasana to thought, thought to action. So this is that. That vasana is lying latent in your subconscious mind. You are not able to even recognize them. Where is the question of addressing them? But still, Shastra says, even though you don't recognize them, even though you are not able to address them, they still form an obstruction. And this is the third part that we talked about, Nididhyasana. So until these desires manifest themselves, what do we do? Until that is why the example of the child. The child, when it is in the womb, what do you do? What can you do?
Give him with good food.
The child should come out.
You have to wait. You have to wait till the child is born. So here he is saying that those latent desires which are not recognized and therefore ulbena, covered in your subconscious mind, you cannot handle them until they manifest. And therefore there is nothing you can do, but you have to wait. Okay, so three things: covered by the smoke, fire cannot do what it has to do. Covered by the dust, mirror cannot do what it has to do. Covered by the womb, a child cannot behave like a child. The child cannot do anything. In the same way, covered by the desire, covered by kamaha, buddhi cannot do its job, which is what? To analyze, to interpret, that to take decisions which are in accordance with dharma, that buddhi cannot do. This is the meaning of this particular verse. Okay, there is another simpler version. Okay, this particular meaning that I have given you is based on Shankara's beautiful bhashya. And there is one more simpler meaning which you can take also. So when the smoke is covering the flame, it is easy to remove the smoke. What do you have to do? You have to just take a fan or a little bit of cardboard and fan it a bit, and the smoke will go away, right? You do that in every ritual, in every homam you do that. When the smoke begins to come and begins to hurt your eyes, you just wave your hands or you wave some book or something, and that smoke dissipates. So when the smoke is covering the flame, it is easy to remove the smoke. You only have to do a bit of waving your hands. When the mirror is covered with the dust, you cannot wave your hands. You have to go and get a cloth and wipe it. And sometimes if it is covered deeply by dust, a dry cloth won't do. You have to bring a wet cloth and wipe it. And sometimes if it is really hard, you have to rub really hard. You have to maybe put some sort of, cleansing liquid and soap and water. It's a bit more difficult. And when the child is covered by the womb, you cannot do anything excepting wait. The child has to become mature. And therefore, the second type of interpretation is that there are three types of desires. One set can be eliminated by weak desires, can be eliminated by Viveka Shakti, by mild effort. Discrimination is enough. And if it is slightly more intense, perhaps Vivek Shakti will not work fully, then one has to go through the fulfillment of those desires. That is the second one, Yatha Darsho Malena Cha. And the third one is if the desire is so intense that you're obsessed with it, then there is no point in advising you. You have to remain in karma and hope that one day I will grow out. So just as a child asks for a balloon and we give it, and what do? We keep on giving every time he asks, and we wait for the day when he does not ask for the balloon anymore. So this is second interpretation, easier interpretation, but you should know the Shankara's interpretation that is much more intense. And here we have to very carefully note that kama desire is not being looked down upon by Krishna, because there are two types of desires, Shuddha Kama and Ashuddha Kama. Shuddha Kama is healthy desires, pure desires, and these are necessary for Chitta Shuddhi and even for Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasana. What is being looked down upon is Ashuddha Karma. And so we saw that we have desire at three levels: the instinctive desires, natural desires, that is, acquired desires, and those subconscious vasanas, desires. And as a seeker, I have to learn to handle all three of them, because all three are obstructions. That is the meaning of this very beautiful verse. Then we look at verse number 39. Please unmute yourself. You can chat.
Acharya ji, is
Yes.
there a Sanskrit name for the third one? Like you said, Pramana, Asambhavana, Prameya, Asambhavana.
Viparita Bhavana, we said.
Okay,
Viparita Bhavana is the third.
thank you.
Okay, so please unmute yourself and we can chant the third one. The 39th verse. Avritam jnanametena
Avritam
jnanino nityavairina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena nalena cha. Okay. So first, let's look at the words. Avritam jnanam etena. Then jnaninaha nitya vairina kama rupena kaunteya dushpurena analena cha. Anvaya will be, Hey Arjuna, Hey Kaunteya, etena Nityavairina Kamarupena Dushpurena Analena Cha Jnaninaha Jnanam Avritam. Full stop. So, hey Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Etena, by this, by what? By this Kamaha, Etena Kama Rupena. So, Nitya Vairina means constant, eternal enemy. Vairina is the enemy. Etena Nitya Vairina, by this eternal enemy, which is what? Kama Rupena, which is in the form of binding desires, and which is Dushpurena, which is insatiable. Dushpurena means which can never be satisfied. And Analena, which is like fire. Jnanam Jnaninaha Avratam. The knowledge of that person. Jnaninaha. Here that has to be taken as the person who is on the path to Jnanam. Because you cannot say Jnani's knowledge is covered. So, Jnanam Jnaninaha Avratam. The sadhaka's knowledge is covered. Okay. So, Jnaninaha Nityavairina Kamarupena Dushpurena Analena Cha Etena Jnanam Avratam He Kaunteya. Knowledge is covered by this Kama and Krodaha, Gama and Gama, O Arjuna, which is Dushpurena, which is insatiable, which is Analena, like fire, and which is the constant enemy, Nityavairina, of the vice, of the person who is trying to become a sadhaka, by being a jnani. So here, we have to go back to the last verse and see two words, which is the last line. Tena, tenedam avritam. That last word of the 38th sloka, if you see, it has two words, or three words rather. Tena idam avritam. Avritam means covered. Idam here refers to the power of discrimination. Tena refers to kamena, desire. And therefore that tena idam avritam means that tena idam avritam. By that desire, this discriminative faculty of ours is covered. And here, this particular 39th verse is an explanation of tena and idam, of kama and the discriminative power. In the first words, dushpurena analena cha, is explaining tena, kama. What kind of kama? Dushpurena analena cha, a desire which can be compared to fire. Analena virtues. Analem is fire. And what is special about fire? Fire will destroy the very locus of the fire. So if you have put, some logs of wood, the locus of the fire is the logs of wood. And while the logs of wood are the very cause why the fire is burning, the fire will ultimately destroy those logs of wood also. And therefore he's saying that this karma is like that fire, which is difficult to satisfy. And not only that, dushpurena, difficult to satisfy. Not only that, like fire, it will destroy the very place in which it exists. Fire destroys the very cause of its existence, which is the wood, the logs of wood. Similarly, kama will destroy the very mind, which is the locus for the existence of the kama. So if that desire is in the mind, and all desires are in the mind, and therefore this desire will destroy that very mind. Analam, analaha. It's a very nice word. It means fire, but you look at the breakups. Alam means satisfied. Okay. Analam means never satisfied. So that is why it's called analaha. That which can be never satisfied by feeding it. That is fire. The more you feed it, the more it grows. Similarly, when you fulfill your desires, remember that we are not removing the desire. Right? It's a very common thing in today's world to say, but I want it, why should I not do it? This is the problem. The more you nourish the desire, the more you feed the desire, it goes very stronger and stronger and stronger. And there is a very famous line from Srimad Bhagavatam. It says, "Na jatu kamaha kamanam upabhogena shamyati." Na jatu, never. Kamaha kamanam upabhogena shamyati. By feeding a desire, shamyati, na shamyati. That upabhogena is by feeding. Kamanam upabhogena, by feeding that kama, na kamaha shamyati. That desire can never be fulfilled. And that is why he says dushpurena. So this dushpurena is explained by that Srimad Bhagavatam verse. Na jatu kamaha kamanam upabhogena shamyati. By feeding it, it can never be fulfilled. And therefore dushpurena, it cannot be ever satisfied. Kama rupena. What is that? That fire, which is in the form of an extremely strong desire, the more you feed the fire, the stronger it gets. Until finally, it destroys the very locus which was the support for that fire, which is the mind. And therefore, he says a very important two words, Jnaninaha Nityavairina. So Jnani here is not Jivan Mukta. Jnani here is, why can it not be a Jivan Mukta? Because it's a contextual explanation, right? Jnani cannot be taken as Jivan Mukta here, because for the Jnani, desire cannot be an enemy. Right? How do you know? What is the pramanam for that? In Bhagavad Gita itself, in the last chapter, we saw a particular verse from which we can conclude that Jnani does not view the desire as an enemy. Desire is no longer an enemy for the Jnani. What is that particular pramanam?
It's when they say the gunas are interacting with the gunas and hence they are not bothered.
No. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata. What does it mean? Prajahati yada kaman. He renounces the desires, sarvan partha manogata. Even as they arise in his mind, those desires are addressed by him. They are dropped by him. And therefore, atmana eva atmani tushtaha. Atmanyeva atmani tushtaha. He is happy by himself, in himself. And therefore, here you cannot take Jnani as Jivan Mukta. Therefore, you have to take it as Mumukshu, the one who is striving for Jivan Mukti. And he says this, for a Mumukshu, this Jnanam, this Kamaha is Nitya Vairina, eternal desire, eternal enemy. That's a very, very subtle point. Desire is an enemy for a Gita student. While what is the corollary? It is not an enemy for a non-Gita student. Why would you say that? Why would Krishna say that?
Because while trying to understand the Gita, you are actually trying to fight the desire, because we are trying to gain some knowledge. Person who does not have knowledge will not fight it.
Yeah, so you can say that by studying Shastram, you know that desire is, well, it should not be there. It's an enemy, right? You know that you should not be giving to your desires. And therefore, when fulfilling the desire, you experience guilt at 2 points. One is while fulfilling, you know that you are violating the Shastram. So you experience some guilt. And then while experiencing the karma phalam of the kama, of the desire, again you feel the guilt. And therefore, at 2 steps, see the common thing between a non-Gita student and a Gita student is what? Both experience the karma phalam in terms of, let us say, pain, whatever. So both will experience that pain. But the non-Gita student does not know that he should not be fulfilling the desire, and therefore that first level of pain he doesn't experience. The Gita student experiences that pain even while giving to the desire. And then afterwards, during the karma phala level also, he experiences the pain. So at 2 points, he experiences pain, therefore eternal. Nitya Vairina. Okay. It's like the diabetic, Now, if you are a diabetic and you don't know that you're diabetic and you eat sugar, you will have the pain afterwards. But if you are a diabetic who knows you are a diabetic, then while eating the sugar also you will feel that pain, because I'm going to take something which is going to pain me later, and then you'll actually feel the pain also. So this today you can see in all the modern children who say that you cannot tell me not to smoke. I am exercising my freedom. It is my freedom to smoke. How dare you tell me I can't smoke? But they forget one very important point. Every time you smoke, you are losing something. You are losing your freedom not to smoke, because that smoke, every smoke of yours, it weakens your willpower. And every time you smoke, that willpower is becoming weaker and weaker. And sooner or later, you do not have the willpower not to smoke. You have lost your freedom to smoke. So it's not that you're exercising your freedom to smoke. You are destroying your freedom not to smoke. When it becomes a habit, you will not be able to say no. And therefore, for the mumukshu, the most important quality Krishna is saying is vivekaha, discrimination. And kama is your eternal enemy, because it robs you of your discrimination. So again, we'll make the point. The rising of the desires in your mind, they are born from prakriti. They are born from vasanas. They cannot be controlled at all. Even the greatest Jivan Mukta will have, kama in his mind. What is the difference? He does not give in to them. And therefore, we as mumukshus should have this primary aim. Don't feel guilty about any desire in your mind. It can be any desire. Most undesirable of all desires, it can be. Right? When it comes in your mind, understand that it is coming out of your vasana. You have not had your free will in operation there. Your free will cannot stop the vasana from converting itself into desire or thoughts. And therefore, don't feel guilty. What should you do? Examine the thought, analyze the thought, look at the pros and cons, filter the thoughts, and then only either reject or nourish. Without this kind of constant alertness, any desire will push you into samsara. That's what Krishna is saying over here. Okay, we'll stop for a few seconds because anybody has any questions. These are all points which we should be all. Yes, Chandrasekhar ji?
Sir, I just wanted to ask, that means if there is a desire,
Yeah.
it has to be observed, it has to be thought about, and whether we reject it, or either we reject it or we nourish it.
Yes.
So is it okay to nourish a desire?
Yes. Because when you say I have thought about it, then you have decided that the desire by itself is going to cause no harm. For example, let us say that you suddenly got a desire to listen to Upanishad class. It's a desire. And you examined it and you figured out, okay, fine. I mean, it can do me only good, and therefore you nourish it.
Okay.
So desires are Shuddha desires can be nourished. Ashuddha desires should be put down immediately after the analysis. That is the point. Both desires will appear from your vasana only. Even the desire to come to Vedanta class, basically it comes from vasana only.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay. Yes, June?
Acharya. So we mentioned the discussion of the last verse that
June, please use your mic. Please use your earphone. Everything is vibrating over here. June? Why did you disappear?
Is it okay now? Much better?
No, I am hearing a lot of background noise.
Oh, okay. I will send the question later in the chat.
All right, okay, you can put in the chat. Fine.
So, sir,
Yeah, Inderji, boli. Induji.
Hindu. So, if it is when we observe a desire and we find that partly we can nourish it, or we can nourish it, okay, we can fulfill it, but some amount we have to monitor. So controlling supervision is also part of it, that you can't, maybe there are times when you just don't want to outrightly reject it, but you also want to make sure that you don't overindulge.
That's a compromise, okay?
Okay, that's a
So
compromise.
let's not do compromise around it. At least in the classes, we don't compromise. There is no
Okay.
such thing as it's, I can smoke one cigarette and it's okay, but I won't smoke one packet. That is essentially, essence of what you have said is that, correct? It's okay to have one pack of whiskey, but I won't drink the whole glass, whole bottle. What is the unhealthy desire is unhealthy. And here exactly is the point. This business of, I have only one peg a day. That is exactly what brings you down to one bottle a day afterwards.
Yeah, so that forms the habitual patterns,
Yes,
which it
that is
comes
there.
with.
That's exactly what we discussed. Repetition of something again and again give rise to the vasana.
Okay, yeah, true.
Okay, now we'll look at the 40th verse. So we'll chant. Please chant with me. Indriyani mano buddhihi
Indriyani mano buddhihi
asyadishthanamuchyate
Asyadhyanamuchyate
aiter vimohayatyashaha jnanam avritya dehinam. Right. So let's look at what is going to say. Indriyani manaha buddhihi asya adhishthanam uchyate. So indriyani manaha buddhihi asya adhishthanam uchyate. Etaihi vimohayati yeshaha. So that first word of the second line, etaihi vimohayati eshaha jnanam avritya dehinam. And the anvaya is asya adhishthanam indriyani mana buddhihi uchyate. Full stop. Eshaha etaihi jnanam avritya dehinam vimohayati. So asya adhishthanam, its location. It is what? Kamaha. Asya adhishthanam, its location. Indriyani manaha buddhihi uchyate. Uchyate is said to be Indriyani manaha and buddhihi. The location of this kamaha is said to be the indriyas, the mind and the intellect. And etaihi, with this is what? With these operating from these three locations, eshaha kamaha, that kamaha, vimohayati, it confuses, it deludes the person, the sadhaka, the mumukshu, dehinam. Dehinam is the person, that mumukshu. How does it delude? How does it confuse? Avritya jnanam, by covering the intellect. So the sense organs, the mind and the intellect are said to be the very base of this desire. Remember here, kama is not mentioned, and therefore eshaha and asyaha are the indicators of kamaha. Veiling the knowledge by the use of these three locations, this desire confuses the intellect. So very nice little analogy. Krishna has used the battlefield as an analogy. Why? Because they are standing in a battlefield. So there is a war. He's saying, hey Arjuna, you are at war between you and your mortal enemy, Kamaha. And where is this Kamaha? That Kamaha is in me. And as students of Vedanta, we have to be very clear that Kamaha is in me only. I have to tell myself constantly, nobody is disturbing me. My wife is not disturbing me. My husband is not disturbing me. My mother-in-law is not disturbing me. My neighbor's dog is not disturbing me. What is disturbing me? Only my own desires, only my own karma, because they are located in me. And this karma is very special. It is like COVID-19, you know. COVID-19, how does it operate? What is the attacking strategy of COVID-19? Come on.
Contact.
It comes again and again.
No doctor in this group? What is the strategy?
It
for
So
attack?
the
latches
nasal passage, it enters through the smelling sense. And then
It
affects the
latches on to your own healthy cells.
Can
It
you-
attacks the immune system.
Absolutely. It attacks your immune system, right? And similarly, that kamaha, which is COVID-19 kamaha, it attacks your spiritual immunity system. What is your spiritual immunity system? Viveka Shakti. So just like COVID-19 attacks you by attacking your very defense, your defense barrier is your immune system. And your defense barrier against problems in your spiritual life is the Viveka Shakti. And therefore, Kama attacks that particular Viveka Shakti itself. And therefore, you have to defend yourself, right? So here, Krishna is talking about military strategy. What is military strategy? If you are commander of, let us say, a small little unit attacking something, some enemy in Pakistan, what would you do? You will first say, where will my enemy operate from, right? An enemy army or enemy, what do you call it, portion of the army, squadron or whatever. What does it need? It needs a place from where it can operate, a base from where it can operate. Why does it need a base? Because after every attack, it has to go back to the base to eat, to get fuel, to get supplies, to get rest, to get medicines. And any army has to have a basic area, the base itself, where it has all its supplies and fuel and food and medical supplies. And that is where it operates from. It comes from there, attacks and goes back there. And having known this, if you want to win the war against your enemy, what do? You have to find out which is the base of the enemy. And your strategy is simple. Rather than go in an all-out war against the enemy, what you do is you hit the enemy bases. The enemy base you destroy. What happens? The enemy does not get nourishment, it gets scattered and it is destroyed. And we saw this, 3 or 4 years ago in the surgical strikes. You hit the terrorist bases and the terrorists ran. So you control the bases, the war is won. And Krishna is using that military strategy over here. He says there are 3 bases from which, 3 camps from which this enemy kamaha desire operates. And the first camp is Indriyani. The 5 sense organs are the first camp. Why? Because they are the point of first contact. They alone introduce all sense objects to me. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, they all introduce the sense organs to me. Therefore, they are the Indri, first point of contact, first base. And today's TV ads reinforce this very strongly. Whenever we see such TV ads again and again telling you that you have to buy the latest car or the latest TV set, which verse should you remember? Which verse are all the TV ads based upon? You may think it is strange, but TV ads are based upon a Gita verse.
Matra sparshastu kaunteya.
Dhyayato vishayam pumsaha. The more you think about the objects, the more you are drawn to them. Very beautiful little person who has introduced the first TV ad would have been a Gita student. Okay, he used it badly, but anyway. So dhyayato vishayam pumsaha. And we can still use that verse, but with a slight modification. The TV ad tell you that that how happy that object will make me, right? You use the same verse and you say Dhyato Vishyam Punsaha, but when I think about the Vishaya, I will not think about the happiness that that Vishaya will give me, but I will say that Vishaya can only be finally a source of sorrow. Every Vishaya has to be a source of sorrow because of Tridosha, three defects. What are they?
Dukha mishritatvam, patriptikartvam, and bandhakatvam.
I hope everybody knows these three. Like every Vishaya, every finite object can only be a source of sorrow in the final analysis because of three defects. Dukkha mishritatvam. In acquiring any object, there is pleasure, of course, but there is pain also in acquiring that object, in maintaining the object, and finally in losing the object. So that is the great defect. The second one is atripti karatvam. Any amount of objects that I acquire, I want more. Any amount of acquisition I am never fully satisfied. And the third one is bandhakatvam. Any object I acquire, it becomes a form of dependence for me. I can no longer be happy without that object, and therefore it becomes a bondage for me. And this I must remember. And therefore I can use this verse in reverse. Dhyato vishayam pumsaha, but think about the tridosha, not about the happiness it will give you. So the first base is what? The first base is Indriyan. The second base is Manaha.
Mind.
The Indriyan is the Vishayas, the objects, may be before your actual eyes for a short period of time. But what is the problem? Even though the Vishaya has gone away from your eyes, in front of your eyes, the mind has taken over. And that is what is meant by Dhyayato Vishayam Pulsaha. It does recording again and again, and replay again and again. The mind keeps on dwelling on it. Therefore, it is the second base. And the third base is buddhihi. It is your intellect is the third base. How? Because the mind tells you that I will be happy if I get this object, which the indriyas have introduced. The indriyas have introduced the object. The mind has started thinking about the object, and the mind is saying that I will be happy only if I get this object. And the intellect, which is your discriminative power, it is overcome by the kamaha. Therefore, it says, okay, I agree with the mind that the external object will make me happier and more secure. So instead of considering the tridosha of the object, the buddhi considers it as an object of happiness. And the judgment that this person or this situation or this object will increase my happiness or make my life more secure, this is the worst judgment, says Vedanta, that a buddhi can make. And these are three bases from where this desire operates. And so Krishna says, Asya adhisthana muchyate. So Asya here means kamasya. Is of this kama, these three are the bases, the nourishing centers. And etaihi, with the help of these three nourishing centers, what happens? Eshaha vimohayati. this kama, it overpowers the intelligence of human beings. It confuses them. How? Dehinam jnanam avritya. By covering the intellectual ability to discriminate. By covering Viveka Shakti, it makes the person confused. As Vedantic students, we should be all aware that Anatma has three very basic qualities. Unpredictable, number one. Uncontrollable, number two. Unsustainable, number three. You can never predict what is going to be the effect of relying upon Anatma. And even if you are going to rely, you cannot control the effect that Anatma will have upon you. And even if you consider, okay, fine, unpredictable, uncontrollable, I will still rely, you must know that it cannot be permanent. It is unsustainable at all times. So with this, we'll stop for the day in case any questions are there. All very, very deep, important verses, deeply rooted in Karma Kanda, but still extremely important for all of us.
Ravi sir,
Yes.
can I say something?
Yeah, Kush.
Sir, Vedanta has been by far the most amazing thing I've ever come across. It's beyond any material possessions, I swear.
Very good. Yes, I know. You've always been impressed by Vedanta after the first class we had. So Vedanta has, like Kush, would you like to share the impact that it had on your life? It's had very powerful impact on the lives of a lot of people I know. So
Sir, every flight. So basically, I'm a cabin manager. So you come across 200 to 300 people every day, and you have to manage the team. So if you do with this Chitta Shuddhi Bhavana, it makes a lot of difference, because no matter how disturbed the external environment is, it doesn't really remove the calm of your mind. And whatever happens, you take it as the way it is without getting attached from your likes and dislikes. Overall, the situation is handled much more calmly, and of course, everything goes very well.
yeah, so that's very important. In Kush's case, a person who is traveling, I think probably 25 days of the month in different cities, in different countries, it's quite an achievement to be able to keep the mind stable in spite of that kind of a schedule. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions?
Sir,
Yes,
can I
Amna.
ask?
Yeah.
So last time also I had the same query. In verse 38, that gave the simile of womb to the fetus. And I know very well it has been explained that we have to wait for those desires. But here womb is very much protective for the fetus. Now for the desires for whom we have to wait, those won't be protective. So I was
You
not
should
convinced
always use an
this will work.
example as to the effect for which the example is bound to be used. Example is given for a particular, to illustrate a particular point. In Vedanta, it is always like that. You are not supposed to take the example and spread it across. For example, the example of, that, who's that fellow cut off his thumb for Dronacharya? Ekalavya. So that can be used, that is meant to be used to illustrate Guru Bhakti. And that is the limitation of the example. You cannot go on saying how did Dronacharya want to come from his student? What kind of Acharya is he? That is not the purpose.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Alka.
Sometimes there have been desires in the past. They've not been fulfilled, but now you feel that you don't really care for that. It's not important. I mean, I was silly to have wanted that. Will that desire still remain latent somewhere? Because you no longer want it.
Yeah, many things. Like, I used to like Gilli Danda once upon a time, but I don't really have an, yearning for it anymore.
So it's finished. It's gone now. It's
So
nothing.
once maturity has set in, you have dropped that. Like a doll. Yeah, dolls are no longer there for you, right? At one point of your life, you'd have been devastated if something happened to your doll. But today it doesn't matter. You have grown out of the desire. That is what is the third example meant for. yathaval bena, when you grow out of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
Hear me now?
Yes, Joe.
So the question I wanted to ask was that we mentioned in the discussion of the first verse that Shravana, Manana, and Vidyasana, they also help to remove mental impurities. So
June, could you speak louder?
we mentioned that in the last discussion that Shravana, Manana, and Vidyasana, they help to remove mental impurities, kind of helping in Chitta Shuddhi. So
Yeah.
we usually say that before coming to jnana, we should get Chitta Shuddhi, but the very Shravana Manana Vidyasana is also giving you more Chitta Shuddhi.
See, basically, there are two stages. One is pre-jnanam and one post-jnanam. So if you are 100% Chitta Shuddhi already, then you don't need anything beyond Shravanam. But in most cases, you will find that you are not 100% Chitta Shuddhi, endowed with 100% Chitta Shuddhi when you come to Jnanam. So it continues post the Shravanam also. And therefore, we say that Shravanam Maranam can also reduce, take care of these. But in both cases, if you remember, we have used different types of impurities. Karma Yoga removes Mala, we said. Upasana Yoga removes Vikshepa. Shravanam removes impurity called what? Ajnanam. Mananam removes Samshaya. These are all considered impurities, but they are different qualities. One is pre-Shravanam, one is post-Shravanam. They are all impurities. Don't get confused by the word impurities. You have to look at the individual type of impurity. Then only you can understand what are the different sadhanas meant for. June? Okay, so with this we'll stop for today. Om Purnamadav
Purnamidam Purnat
Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.